Let me heavenly up my aromas here. Yeah. Today we're going to continue going over Jude. I want to touch on verses 9 through 16 today. Maybe even further, but I want to get at least 9 through 16. Jude touched on a lot of Hebraic information, so I want to go through some of that information that Jude touched on. So we got to know a little bit about the Hebraic culture and etc. in order to truthfully get the information down. So now, let me make sure that I'm in again. I had to get everything set up. Alright, so give me 1 second. Let me log out, log back in, and then I'll be ready to rock and roll. I just want to make sure that all of my audio is coming through. So let's see here. Let's see if this audio is coming through. I'm trying to cut it up real fast. Is any audio coming through? Okay, so it is coming through. So now I'm good with that. So now, let's continue to go over the book of Jude, okay? We stopped off last weekend at Jude verse 8. So now we're going to go to Jude for verse 9. And let's see what we got going on here. So Jude, verse 9. And what we did, we didn't walk through all of the things that the people were doing that they had to be judged and punished for. So Jude is just touching upon that first century generation, what those Israelites, what those Jews were doing to the righteous saints, to those Christians. So where Jude was pretty much touching on the impending judgment for those Torah only following Jews who had a problem with the sect called the Way, or the Christians. So now let's begin. It said, yet Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, the Lord rebuked thee. So now we can look at this as twofold. First of all, we know that the body of Moses could be considered or classified as all of the people under the Mosaic covenant, and this would be symbolic for those people under the Mosaic covenant battling against the wiles of the devil, and the wiles of the devil actually not defeating them, but giving them a lot of troubles as they try to grow and increase in that covenant that they could not keep. So that's one of the ways to look at it. Here's another way. I found some commentary about it. Let's see here. Let's go to here. This is from Fathers of the 3rd Century, Tertullian, Part 4, Monasius Felix, Commodian Origin, Chapter 2 on the opposing powers. And this is what we have here. We have now to notice, agreeably to the statements of Scripture, how the opposing powers are the devil himself. So it could be the opposing powers, or which could be classified as the devil, contends with the human race, inciting and instigating men to sin. And in the first place, in the book of Genesis, the serpent is described as having seduced Eve, regarding whom, in the work entitled The Ascension of Moses, a little treatise of which the Apostle Jude makes mention in his epistle, the archangel Michael, when disputing with the devil regarding the body of Moses, says that the serpent, being inspired by the devil, was the cause of Adam and Eve's transgression. So, now this is the church father talking upon a piece of evidence, a piece of literature that they came across, which was the ascension of Moses. See, we have an ascension of Moses. I got one on me right now, but it doesn't touch upon this subject. So that shows me that, you know, it was a better version back then that we just did not get when they was coming up with this information, or when they was translating this information. But we see here that Satan actually, let me show you right here. This is what they thought, some of the church fathers now. So, you know, this is some dealing with Hebraic culture with a Gentile spin, or just plain Hebrew culture. It depends on how far down the line you go. But this is a thought, an ideology thousands of years ago. And it says this right here. The serpent was inspired by the devil. So it's not saying that the serpent itself was the devil, but it was inspired by the devil. Just a tidbit. And I can close these out real fast. And now, this is another one. It says, early in the 1st century, there was a story in the Testament of Moses, which was a Jewish writing. Jude's account seems to guide allusion to that legend, because some of the page of this testament are missing. The following Jewish writings shed some light on the aforementioned from the Jewish commentaries. Deuteronomy, Rabbah 11 and 10. There was a dispute about an hour before Moses died. It was between the angel of death, associated with the adversary Satan, and Michael, Satan's opponent. Michael is the angel considered to be the defender of Israel in Jewish tradition. So, we see once again that this whole scuffle dealing with Moses' body, which would have been a Jewish legend back then, it was passed on throughout the centuries. And this is what Jude was alluding to. So once again, this is more dealing with the Hebraic culture, and with the Hebrew culture and nature and etc. You got to know some of these cultural things in order to understand where these Hebrews are coming from, this transcribing and writing this Bible. So let's continue on. So now, verse 10. But these speak evil of those things which they know not, but what they know naturally, as brute beasts, and those things they corrupt themselves. So these Israelites, 1st century Israelites, the people that was Antichrist, they had their Antichrist spirit, they was going off of how they understood the prophets and how they understood the Torah. So They did not actually understand the fulfillment or what Christ came to do. And we have the same problem today, especially in my community when we talk to the Torah only individuals. They'd be like, well, where is Christ brought up in the Torah or the Tanakh? And then you show them, and they say, well, that don't prove nothing, or that was talking about somebody else. But I mean, it is what it is. So Jude, the same thing was going in the first century. But let's see some parallels to this. Who? For how long? 2 hours. Okay. So let's see. Let's go to 2 Peter 2:11 real fast. Second Peter 2:11. Whereas angels, which are greater in power and might, bring not railing accusation against them before the Lord. So they was talking about the government that they despise and the dignities, and even though the angels were more powerful than people, they do not even take these railing accusations to the Most High about what these people are doing. But we had the people on earth at that time despising government, and that's what they was trying to do. So, and let's keep going on. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to get this straight. It says, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but because vain in their imaginations and their foolish heart was darkened, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. So what's going on right here? This is talking about how the wrath of God was supposed to be upon all unrighteous and ungodly men. And these people that had this covenant that was supposed to be the peculiar people, was supposed to be God's people, they thought that they understood the Most High because they had Torah and Moses and the prophets. But they wasn't getting the big picture. They wasn't understanding what these feast days really represented. So, let's take us back to Jude. It takes us back to Jude 1:10. But these speak evil of things which they know not. See, they were speaking evil against the church. They were speaking evil against the gospel of the kingdom and against Christ, because they did not understand the mission. They did not understand the church or the spiritual kingdom. We have a lot of people like that today. So this has been going on a long time. But this stage was set in the first century. But let's see. But what they know naturally as brutes, beasts, in those things they corrupt themselves. So the things that they knew naturally, just like a brute beast, what does brute beasts do? They know how to destroy, they know how to eat, they know how to mate, they know how to do the basics. This is what they knew. They knew how to destroy, they knew how to conquer, they knew how to try to gain power, how to be aggressive, to try to make people be in submission to them. They knew all of the things that regular brute animals that does not have the intelligence of mankind could do. They knew how to do that stuff, and they corrupted themselves doing it, and they tried to use the law of Moses to back their actions. That was the problem. They did not understand Christ and the mission that Christ had. So Jude 1:11. Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Korah. So this is what was going on in the first century. These people that was in these high places, these officiating people that were supposed to be looking over the widows and the fatherless and the poor, these people in the Mosaic covenant, they lost all of their way, and they still thought that they were supposed to be protected by the Father as the chosen people, as the chosen seed. But it says they have gone in the way of Cain. So now, let's go through some of this information. If we want to know how they went into the way of Cain, first thing we need to do is let's look at some of the things that Cain did. Genesis 4:2. And she bare again, and she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So Cain was a worker. And in the process of time went on. It came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. So now we have, look, over here it says the process of time at the end of days, either the end of the year, end of the week, or the Sabbath. Just giving you different things with the process of time parallels. But anyway, so we got Cain bringing the fruit of the ground for an offering unto the Lord. This shows you that offerings, sacrifices, they were since the beginning of time. People have been sacrificing to the Most High since the beginning of time. So it is not nothing new. Mosaic covenant has nothing original dealing with these sacrifices. Sacrifices always been there to the Most High. Well, let's keep going on, because we see that Cain brought fruit of the ground, and Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof, and the Lord had respect unto Abel and unto his offering. So we have the distinction. It said Cain brought of the fruit, but Abel brought of the firstlings. So we got Cain bringing fruit because he was a tiller of the ground, and then we had Abel bringing the firstlings because he watched over the sheep. So what do we see different here? Well, we got Cain bringing fruit, but we got Abel bringing the firstlings. So it kind of seems that Cain did not bring his first fruits. He just brought fruit. But Abel brought his firstlings. He did exactly what the Most High required of him, to bring the first of the flock. Even then, Abel was submissive to the Most High, and he respected the Most High, and he did the correct offering. While Cain did an offering, but it wasn't the correct one. I don't see anything about first fruits here, but it specifically said that Abel brought the firstlings. It could have just said he brought of the flock. So we have it there. Now, verse 5. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. So we see right here. Hold on, y'all.
Mama said you got some juice.
Tell her y'all have to wait. And unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. So this shows you right now where we can draw a conclusion that Cain, this is the first time that Cain had an offering not accepted by the Father. So, because, it doesn't insinuate that this has happened before. And people say, well, it don't insinuate that it has not happened before. But we see that Cain's countenance has failed. It's failed when the Most High did not respect his offering. So I'm thinking it seems like this is the first time that this has occurred. But let's see what's happened. And the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? So let's see if we can get that wrath right there. Where we at? There we go, right there. Wrath, Hebrew, to glow or grow warm, figuratively, to blaze up of anger, zeal, jealousy, be angry, burn, be displeased, grieve, hot. So why was Cain getting angry? Why was he jealous? Why was he in a different state of being after his sacrifice did not get accepted? Look what the Most High told him. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? See, don't forget, the Israelites in the first century, this is the way that they were going into. They went from giving great offerings, and you can see this in Malachi also, and etc. Isaiah spoke of it all. But anyway, they went from giving great offerings and sacrifices and all that to giving sick animals, sickly fruit, to giving just the Most High just any and everything, until he no longer wanted their sacrifices. He no longer wanted their offerings, their feast days. He didn't care about none of that anymore. See, this is the way that they was going into. They were upset. They were getting upset because, hold on, y'all. I need you to close the door. I'm doing something. I need you to close the door. If you're going to go in there and talk. But it says, so they was going in the way. They was being upset at the people that were doing the correct things, and they were feeling a certain type of way with the Christians and those that follow Christ. Meanwhile, they think that they acted like, they portrayed that they was doing what the Most High was wanting them to do, but in reality, they was bringing offerings like Cain. And they was mad at the ones that was bringing offerings like Abel. This is what was going on with them going into the way of Cain. And look what he said, and if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. See, this is the problem we have right here. Sin. They understand. You see, Cain don't say, "Hey, what is sin? What is this sin that you're talking about, Father? How do you do a sin? What does a sin do?" So this shows you that they knew the concept of what sin was. Now, in the covenant under Moses, sin was transgression of the law. But we see that sin itself existed before there was a Mosaic covenant. Sin itself existed a long time since the beginning. Since the beginning, sin was going to be a problem after Adam and Eve ate from the tree of good and evil. After they did that, sin was always going to be a problem. That was the point of Christ, to get away from this sin death. But look, sin lied at the door. And just in case, let's see if we can get what that sin is. It's called, what's that? Kata. A katala. An offense. Sometimes habitual sinfulness. And its penalty, occasion, sacrifice, or expiation. Also, an offender. Punishment. Purifying. Sinning. But we have it as an offense. Offensive against the Most High, against the Most High's nature. So, if thou doest not well, Israel, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be, and you see that shall be in italics, I mean they added that to let the sentence flow better. But let's see if we can read it without it first. And unto thee his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. We have, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So they were going to rule over sin by doing the desires of a sinful nature. Just like the disciples were supposed to judge the 12 tribes of Israel, right? Good or bad, using the gospel, they was going to be the judges of Israel. If the Israel did good, they were going to be the goodness. They was going to rule over that. They was going to judge that. If they did evil, they would have ruled or judged the evilness or the sin. So we see something similar right here. If Cain or anybody did anything that reflects negative of the Most High's character, then their own personal sinful nature would be who they rule over instead of the goodness and the kingdom aspect which they should be ruling over. And Cain, and look what happened. First of all, Cain transgressed, right? He transgressed. The Most High warned him, and this is what it led up to. And Cain talked with Abel, his brother. And it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him. So we got Cain not doing the correct sacrifice. Then we got Cain being jealous. And then we have a warning from the Most High. And Cain responded to the warning of the Most High, not by correcting himself, but by killing his brother. The same thing went on with the disciples. They spoke unto the Pharisees and the scribes and the Sadducees, letting them know, hey, this is what y'all need to correct. This is the way. Christ is going to be that door. We got to do things this way because that old Mosaic covenant is decaying. But they didn't want to hear it. Their response to the disciples was persecution. Persecute them. Anybody that's doing anything in the name of Christ, persecute them. That was their response. And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, look, now he playing semantics with the Most High. This is exactly what was going. This is exactly what Israel was doing. During the time of Christ, they was playing semantics. They was trying to trip Christ up in different Torah aspects, so they can have a righteous way to kill him, to get rid of him. It's just the trickery part, the semantics, the plan. And he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now thou art cursed from the earth, which had opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. So Cain was cursed for killing his brother. You see, killing was wrong before there was a Mosaic covenant. You see, he got cursed for killing. Killing was wrong before there was a Mosaic covenant. Y'all got to understand this stuff. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shall thou be in the earth. That was Cain's punishment. Israel's punishment was they were to be destroyed. Next. So now, let's look at some more parallels. Let's go to 1 second. Alrighty, let's see here. Let's go to the book of Jubilees. See if we can get a little bit more in this Hebraic nature, this Hebraic understanding on exactly what went down between Cain and Abel. All right, Jubilees chapter 4, and let's just read right here. Okay, so we see right here. So now let's see if we can make it a little bit easier. And in the 3rd week of the 2nd Jubilee, she gave birth to Cain. And in the 4th, she gave birth to Abel. And in the 5th, she gave birth to her daughter, Awan. And in the 1st week of the 3rd Jubilee, Cain slew Abel, because God accepted an offering from his hands, but did not receive a fruit offering from the hands of Cain. And as he slew him on the field, and his blood cried aloud from the earth to heaven, lamenting that he had slain him. And God punished Cain because he had slain Abel. And he made him a refugee over the earth on account of the blood of his brother. And he cursed him upon the earth. And on this account it is written in the tablets of heaven, cursed be he who slays his neighbor in wickedness, and all who hear shall say, so be it. And the man who sees it and does not announce it, cursed be he like the other. So once again, we have that murdering was wrong before there was a Mosaic covenant. And then we see that the fruit offering from Cain was not accepted, which we knew, but the animal offering was accepted from Abel. So let's see what we can get. Now let's go into the book of Jasher also. Just to touch on a little bit more of this Hebraic understanding of what actually went down. Let's see. Jasher book 1, chapter 1, started 15. And it was the expiration of a few years that they brought an approximating offering to the Lord. And Cain brought from the fruit of the ground, and Abel brought from the firstlings of his flock, from the fat thereof. And God turned and inclined to Abel and his offering. And the fire came down from the Lord from heaven and consumed it. And unto Cain and his offering the Lord did not turn, and he did not incline to it. For he had brought, see, here we go right here. Here we go right here. Here we go. You see, you gotta know this all of this information. You gotta know this old Hebraic literature. The Bible only touches the high points. Sometimes you gotta get in this Hebraic literature to understand what the Hebrews thought of. But now let's see here. And unto Cain and his offering the Lord did not turn, and he did not incline to it. For he had brought from the inferior fruit of the ground before the Lord. So let's see here. Before the Lord. And Cain was jealous against his brother Abel on account of this, and he sought a pretext to slay him. So he brought from the inferior fruit. So he didn't bring the good fruit. It's not saying the fruit offering was not in respect to the animal offering. No, Cain brought inferior fruit of the ground. He didn't bring the best fruit. He brought of the inferior fruit of the ground. And look, as soon as the Most High did not accept his offering, Cain wanted to slay Abel. And then sometime after, Cain and his brother went one day into the field to do their work, and they were both in the field. Cain tilling and plowing his ground, and Abel feeding his flock. And the flock passed that part which Cain had plowed, I think it's supposed to be plowed, in the ground. And it sorely grieved Cain on this account. So you got Abel's flock passing Cain and grieving Cain. Now, and Cain approached his brother. Watch what you're doing. Watch where you're going. And Cain approached his brother Abel in anger, and he said unto him, What is there between me and thee, that thou comest to dwell and bring my flock to bring thy flock to feed in my land? So Cain is like, hey Abel, your sheep is passing over my land. Why are you doing this? Why is your animals, why are your sheep in my land? And Abel answered his brother Cain and said unto him, What is there between me and thee, that thou shalt eat the flesh of my flock and clothe thyself with their wool? So we see now that they were, what were they? They were meat eaters. They were meat eaters. They were thought to be meat eaters. Okay? So that should stop that. Hey, in the beginning, they never ate no real meat. You know, they only ate leaves and stuff. Well, they ate their sacrifices. And meat offering was some of their sacrifices. So yes. But anyway, eat of the flesh of my flock and clothe thyself with their wool. And now therefore, put off the wool of my sheep, with which thou hast clothed thyself, and recompense me for their fruit and flesh which thou hast eaten. And when thou shalt have done this, I will then go from thy land as thou hast said. So in other words, Abel saying, hey, you get a lot of stuff from me, so if you don't want my animals on your land, then all of the stuff that you get from me will not be available for you no more. And Cain said unto his brother Abel, Surely, if I slay thee this day, who will require thy blood from me? And Abel answered Cain, saying, Surely God, who had made us in the earth, he will avenge my cause. And look, he will avenge my cause, and he will require my blood from thee, shouldest thou slay me. For the Lord is the judge and arbiter, and it is he who will requite man according to his evil, and the wicked man according to the wickedness that he may do upon earth. So they knew that it was wicked, it was evil to want to kill someone before there was a Mosaic covenant. But now look, and now if thou shouldest slay me here, surely God knoweth thy secret views, and will judge thee for the evil which thou didst declare to do unto me this day. And when Cain heard the words which Abel his brother had spoken, behold, the anger of Cain was kindled against his brother for declaring this thing. And Cain hasted and rose up and took the iron part of his plowing instrument, with which he suddenly smote his brother, and he slew him. And Cain spilt the blood of his brother Abel upon the earth, and the blood of Abel streamed upon the earth before the flock. Now, so we have that whole thing on how Cain murdered Abel and what all in the Hebraic mind led up to it. But I want to show y'all also, what did Abel say? Abel said, Surely God who has made us in the earth, he will avenge my cause, and he will requite man according to his evil, and the wicked man according to the wickedness that he may do upon earth. God knoweth thy secret views, and will judge thee for the evil which thou didst declare to do unto me this day. So even the thought of it, he was going to have to get judged for. But I was wanting to show y'all something. So Abel was telling Cain that the Most High was going to avenge his cause, right? Well, once you go to, hello everybody, sorry. You go to here. Once you go to Matthew 23. And 35 right here. Look what Christ told the Pharisees and scribes. That upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel and to the blood of Zechariah son of Berechias, whom you slew between the temple and the altar. So that vengeance that Abel was telling Cain that he was going to receive is actually was going to be against the Pharisees and the scribes in the first century. I just thought that was a good tidbit to know. So now, First John 3:11-12. For this is the message that ye have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Not as Cain, who was that wicked one, and slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil, and his brother's righteous. See? Cain slew Abel because Abel had a righteous act, had righteous works that the Most High accepted. Meanwhile, Cain had evil works because he gave up that inferior fruit of his ground. And the same thing we were seeing in the first century. The Christians, Christ, all of them, they had the righteous works. They was visiting the widows and the fatherless and the poor. And they was doing all of these things. Meanwhile, the Torah only people, the Torah followers, they were out there not doing any of the things they were supposed to, but they was condemning people using the law of Moses, and they was putting people to death using the law of Moses. Now, and let's see also it says, which have, and then, hold on, let's go back to Jude. Let's go back to Jude real fast. So, they had gone of the way of Cain and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward. So now let's go back to 2 Peter. Let's see what the Israelites are doing. They're having eyes full of adultery, and that cannot cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls, and heart they have exercised with. Sorry, y'all, give me 1 second. Having eyes full of adultery, they cannot cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls, and heart they have exercised with covetous practices, cursed children, which have forsaken the right way, and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bezor, who love the wages of unrighteousness. So now, this is what the Israelites in the first century, those Pharisees and Sadducees, this is the characteristics that they displayed. So now, let's venture real fast. Let's venture. Alright, let's try here. Let's go back to Jasher real fast. Let's go to Jasher 7. Start at 1. And in the 3rd year from the birth of Moses, Pharaoh was sitting at a banquet when Apparenith, the queen, was sitting at his right hand and Bethiah at his left. And the lad Moses was lying upon her bosom. And Balaam, the son of Beor, with his 2 sons, and all the princes in the kingdom were sitting at the table in the king's presence. So we're going to learn a little bit about Balaam. And when God caused a famine throughout the land, he sent forth and brought his father with all his brothers. And the whole, so give me 1 second, y'all. One more. No. And when God caused a famine throughout the land, he sent forth and brought his father with all his brothers and the whole of his father's household, and supported them without price or reward, and bought the Egyptians for slaves. So we see that they had slaves back then. Okay? They had slaves back then. They knew what slaves were. But anyway. Now therefore, my Lord, behold, this child has risen up in their stead in Egypt to do according to their deeds, and to trifle with every king, prince, and judge. If it please the king, let us now spill his blood upon the ground, lest he grow up and take away the government from thy land, and the hope of Egypt perish after he shall have reigned. And Balaam said to the king, let us moreover call for the judges of Egypt and the wise men thereof, and let us know if the judgment of death is due to this boy, as thou didst say, and then will we slay him. This is talking about Moses, right? And Pharaoh sent and called forth all the wise men of Egypt, and they came before the king, and the angel of the Lord came amongst them, and he was like one of the wise men of Egypt. So we have the Most High allowing angels to do more work amongst men than what the regular scriptures display. This is some of the old Hebraic thinking. All right, this is Hebraic literature. So now, and the king said to the wise men, surely you have heard what this Hebrew boy who is in the house has done, and thus has Balaam judged in the matter. See, Balaam was a big figure back then. But let's keep reading. Now judge you also, and see what is due to the boy for the act he has committed. And the angel, who seemed like one of the wise men of Pharaoh, answered and said as follows: before all the wise men of Egypt, and before the king and the princes, if it please the king, let the king send for men who shall bring before him an onyx stone and a coal of fire, and place them before the child. And if the child shall stretch forth his hand and take the onyx stone, then shall we know that with wisdom has the youth done all that he has done, and we must slay him. Bye. Bye. Close the door in the room. But if he stretch forth his hand upon the coal, then shall he, sorry y'all, having some issues in my background, but anyway. But if he stretched forth his hand upon the coal, then shall we know that it was not with knowledge that he did this thing, and he shall live. And the thing seemed good in the eyes of the king and the princes, so the king did according to the word of the angel of the Lord. And the king ordered the onyx stone and the coal to be brought and placed before Moses, and they placed the board before them, and the lad endeavored to stretch forth his hand to the onyx stone, but the angel of the Lord took his hand and placed it upon the coal. And the coal became extinguished in his hand, and he lifted it up and put it in his mouth, and burned part of his lips and part of his tongue, and he became heavy in mouth and tongue. So this is what happened on the invisible realm. The angel of the Lord took his hand. So they thought that the angels could move things around in the invisible. They thought the angel of the Lord could move things around in the invisible. And when the king and princes saw this, they knew that Moses had not acted with wisdom and taken off the crown from the king's head. So the king and princes refrained from slaying the child. So Moses remained in Pharaoh's house, growing up, and the Lord was with him. So that's one thing that we have. Hold on, let's go back to 30. Let's go back to 37. And they told him what all the counsels which Balaam the son of Beor had counseled against them, and what he had also counseled against him, in order to slay him when he had taken the king's crown from off his head. So we have that Balaam was a counselor of the king, and Balaam was trying to protect the government of Egypt by killing the promised one of Israel. So Balaam used all of his gifts and all of his understandings in order to try to warn the Egyptians against Moses, the Israelite. And we have something similar in the New Testament when they was like, we got to hurry up and stop this person, which was Christ, before all of the people follow him and Rome take their power, their government out of our hands. So we see the same thing. All right. Joshua 79, 27 through 30. And when they had gone, Pharaoh sent for Balaam, the magician, and to James and Jambres, his son, and to all the magicians and conjurers and counselors which belonged to the king, and they came and sat before the king. And the king told them all the words which Moses and his brother Aaron had spoken to him. And the magician said to the king, but how came the man to thee on the account of the lions which were confined at the gate? And the king said, because they lifted up their rod against the lions and loosed them, and came to me, and the lions also rejoiced at them, as a dog rejoices to meet his master. And Balaam the son of Beor the magician answered the king, saying, These are none else than magicians like ourselves. So Balaam was trying to downplay the power of the Most High, even though he knew about all of the miracles. He was telling them they're just like us. Same thing in the New Testament. The disciples, Christ, they was all doing these miracles, and the Pharisees and the Sadducees overlooked all of them and tried to make them be just like them, just normal men, just like them. Okay, so we're talking more about Balaam now. Need y'all to hurry up? Need y'all to hurry up? so let's see what we got here. Numbers 31, let's start at 8. And they slew the kings of Midian beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi and Rechem and Zur and Hur and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam, also the son of Beor, they slew with the sword. And the children of Israel took all the women of Midian captives and their little ones, and took the spoil of all their cattle and all of their flock and all their goods. And they burnt all of the cities wherein they dwelt, and all their godly castles with fire. Close the door, please. And they took all the spoil and all the prey, both of men and beasts. And they brought the captives and the prey and the spoil unto Moses and Eleazar, the priest, and unto the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the camp of the plains of Moab, which are by Jordan near Jericho. And Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the princes of the congregation went forth to meet them without the camp. And Moses was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, which came from the battle. And Moses said unto them, Have you saved all the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Israel, through the counsel of Balaam, to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor. And there was a plague amongst the congregation of the Lord. So we have that the children of Israel was taught to commit trespass because how Balaam counseled the women of the nation that they had to conquer. So Balaam taught others how to make the children of Israel transgress. This is similar to the apostasy in the New Testament. They knew exactly what they were supposed to be doing. They got to following Christ. They were following Christ. They was entering into the new covenant. They was getting their king and priesthood all together, doing the spiritual sacrifices. And then you have these Pharisees and scribes, Sadducees, coming in with this apostasy, like attitude, telling people, no, the law of Moses, this and that. And then that they was forging letters telling people that the day of the Lord had already came and gone and etc. And look, the temple was still standing. So that Christ fella, he did not know exactly what he was talking about. Because even though that wrath, even though the whole wrath and all this stuff, it had already came and gone. Y'all saw the persecution that y'all done already heard about and went through. So the big picture, that was the big picture. And you see, the temple is still standing. So we still need to be under the Mosaic covenant. You can do what Christ said, but the Mosaic covenant is still here because he said the temple was going to be destroyed, and it's still standing. You see, this was that apostasy. When Christ said, when I return, will I find any faith? Because that apostasy, that great falling away, had to occur by Israel teaching those Israelite Christians the ways of Balaam, or the ways of forsaking Christ in that new covenant, going back and keeping it in the Mosaic covenant full of death. So we have the parallel. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him. But all the women children, that have not known a man lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. Okay? So now let's go to. Now I know I probably did some of this out of order. Hey, tell Raya and Adriana to come eat. Numbers 25. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their God, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor. Where was Balaam from? Son of Peor. Should have went when you went in there. And Israel joined himself into Baal Peor. Close the door, please. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. Tell Moore to go ahead and go, then you go after her. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor. Remember, Balaam was the son of Peor. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. Why was the anger of the Lord kindled against Israel? Because they began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they began to they begin to have people sacrifice to those lesser gods. And they eat and bow down to those lesser gods. You remember, there should not have no other God before me? See, well, let's keep reading. And the Lord said unto Moses, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before the Lord against the sun, and the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, slay ye every one of his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brother a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moses, and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. And he went after the men of Israel into the tent, and thrust both of them through. Thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. And those that died in the plague were 24,000. All right, let's see what happened again. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moses. So they did this in the sight of Moses. This is how rebellious the children of Israel was. They did this in the sight of Moses, and in the sight of all of the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And look what Phinehas did. He killed both of them. But we see that these people, these Israelites, they were partaking of the whoredom from the nation of Moab. They started transgressing their own laws in order to appease to the daughters or the women of Moab. So that's why in Numbers 31 that we read, why Moses had a problem. But anyway, so in the first century, you got the Pharisees. You got to go through the research, but they was actually doing all type of idolatry also, appeasing to the Roman gods and the Grecian gods in order to be in good standing with the Romans and with the Grecians. Now they was even allowing some of this stuff to be around the temple. And they was putting up all these groves and etc. in order to appease to the Chittim people, the Romans, and the Javanites, the Greeks. So we see the same thing occurring. So just like Balaam taught Moab and etc. how to get the Most High to start working against Israel and to get Israel to have an apostasy back then. We don't have them, the Pharisees in the first century, teaching each other how to get the Most High to work against them. But they were teaching each other the same apostasy, the falling away, the great falling away. So, let's go to and we just read it, are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bozor. And what happened? Or Peor. What happened? Their eyes was full of adultery. They could not cease from sin. They were unstable souls. Had covetous practices. They were cursed children. Let's see what else it says. They were sporting themselves with their own deceivings. All of this stuff that was which the Israelites were doing in the first century. Well, let's keep reading. Ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did because of Baal Peor. For all the men that followed Baal Peor, the Lord thy God hath destroyed them from among you. Which is what, 24,000? But ye that did cleave unto the Lord your God are alive, every one of you this day. So the people that did not go in the way of Baal Peor, which was taught from Balaam, which was this is what Balaam knew. He came from the same land and etc. All of that stuff, all of that information, all of the ways that they did things, they would be the apostasy back then, and the Most High destroyed them. Like the people that was doing the apostasy in the first century, they got destroyed. Let's see. It is the iniquity of Peor, too little for us, for which we are not cleansed until this day, although there was a plague in the congregation of the Lord. So he plagued them and they was dying for all of that idolatry. And let's see. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols and to commit fornication. So we see that was the doctrine: eat things sacrificed unto idols and to commit fornication. That was one of the doctrines of Balaam, which were a stumbling block before the children of Israel. They were telling everybody that it was okay to eat those things sacrificed to idols, and it was okay to commit fornication. Let's see if we can get. Let's see if we can get that. To act the harlot, unlawful lust, practice idolatry. You see, they was committing. They was practicing idolatry. They were being a harlot. They was eating food sacrificed to idols. See? And they had the doctrine, instructions of Baal. Alright, so now. I think we didn't hit that. So now let's go to Jude. I mean, it's good to know these backstories to see what Jude is actually talking about. You got to know the history. So now, these are spots in your feast of charity. When they feast with you, feeding themselves without fear. Clouds they are without water, carried about of wind. Trees whose fruit withered, without fruit, twice dead, plucked up by the roots. So these were the wicked men. Listen to the imagery. Listen to how, y'all speed up. Listen to how the Most High spoke. Well, listen to how Jude spoke. Listen to the Hebrew literature. Spots in your feast of charity. When they feast with you, they were the spots. They was the leprous people. Feeding themselves without fear. Didn't care about the Most High. They didn't care that they was doing wrong. Clouds without water. Just sitting there, doing nothing. No point. Can't help anything. Carry about of winds. Just going around. To and fro. No points. Trees whose fruit wither. There's no fruit in them. You can't eat from them. You can't gain nothing from them. Without fruit. Twice dead. Dead spiritually. The second death, right? Twice dead. Let's see if we can get that real fast. Let's see here. Yep, again. Yep, that's it. To me, that's more like the second death. Twice dead. Plucked up by the roots. So, let's see here. Close the door, please. Ezekiel 17:9. Say thou, thus said the Lord God, shall it prosper? Shall he not pull up the roots thereof, and cut off the fruit thereof, that it wither? It shall wither, and all the leaves of her spring, even without great power, are many people to pluck up the roots thereof. So let's see what's going on here. He was putting forth Israel. He was speaking this parable unto Israel. And that was one of the parable, and we can see that Jude was pulling from it, and we see Christ did something similar to that. This is about all of the wicked men in Israel. Y'all hurry up at the table. And shall receive the reward from righteousness, as they that counted pleasure to ride in the daytime. Spots they are, and blemishes, sporting themselves with their own deceivings while they feast with him. So we have Jude. Close the door, please. And sporting themselves with their own deceivings while they feast with you. So we have pretty much. Let's see over here. We have pretty much Peter and Jude saying the same thing, you know. And it's showing over here, look, there's no spot in these. These are the good people. Having no spots are the people that are considered for the white clothing. The people that had spots are the ones that were full of sin. It remind me of leprosy. But let's see here. They were withered fruit. But he answered and said, every plant which my heavenly Father had not planted shall be rooted up. Now let's keep going. That we henceforth be no more children, tossed to. Hold on, let me get up and see what's going on. Don't come back out. Don't come back out. Sorry, y'all. You're getting a lot of distractions. They know I'm doing something, so that's what they do when I'm doing something. That we henceforth be no more children tossed to and fro, and carried about with every wind of doctrine, but the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive. So, I mean, we're seeing it. And on the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off having leaves, he came, if happily he might find anything thereon. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of the figs was not yet. And in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. And Peter, calling to remembrance, said he unto him, Master, behold, the fig tree which thou cursed is withered away. So, we see that, right? All of that, we see that now. Carrying about of winds, the doctrines, trees whose fruit withered, without fruit. That tree that Christ came through, it had no fruit on it. He cursed it, and it became withered. That's what's symbolic to what was going to happen to the children of Israel. They was twice dead. They was going to go through the second death, plucked up by the roots, because everything that the Father did not plant was going to get plucked up. All right. So now, raging waves of the sea, foaming out of their shame. Look what he called them. Wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. They was called wandering stars, and they were supposed to be reserved in the blackness of darkness forever. This is very important, because this is talking about the children of Israel right now. Mainly the Pharisees and Sadducees, right? This is pretty much talking about what was supposed to happen to them. Now, let's see if we can find something there. These are wells without water, clouds that are carried with a tempest. to whom the mist of darkness is reserved forever. This is Peter pretty much saying the same thing. But the wicked are like the troubled sea when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. So you see all this imagery that's talking about the wicked men. This is how the Hebrews talked. They would have understood that they was talking about the Israelites, point blank period, no need to guess. They would have understood that all of this language is about wicked Israel, wicked men in Israel. Look, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, whose glory is in their shame, who minded earthly things. These people were worried more about the dietary law. Their gods were their belly, whose glory is in their shame. Out of the things that they did that they weren't supposed to do, that's what they liked doing. They was wanting to be glorified in there. Who minded earthly things. Hold on, give me one sec. Alright, y'all, hold on. Alright, so now, who minded earthly things, they was worried more about the Mosaic covenant instead of the heavenly things. Instead of the new covenant was based on faith and all spiritual and heavenly things. But, notice Jude spoke a lot on Enoch also. Jude was an Enoch reader. So, let's read some of the things in Enoch to see what Jude was talking about. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, hold on, give me 1 sec. Alright, well, what I would do then, can't find my good Enoch copy. I had one reserved online, but I would just read it myself out of Enoch. So, Enoch 22. Through 16. So let's see what it says. Enoch 22:11. And he answered me and said unto me, these three have been made that the spirit of the dead might be separated, and such a division has been made for the spirits of the righteousness, in which there is a bright spring of water, and such has been made for sinners when they die and are buried in the earth, and judgment has not been executed on them in their lifetime. Here their spirit shall be set apart in the great pain until the great day of judgment and punishment and the torment of those who curse forever, and retribution for their spirits. And he shall bind them forever. And such a division has been made for the spirits of those who make their suit, who make disclosures concerning their destructions, when they were slain in the days of the sinners. Such has been made for the spirit of men who were not righteous but sinners, who were complete in transgression, and of the transgressors they shall be companions. But their spirits shall not be slain in the day of judgment, nor shall they be raised from thence. So they were not considered those people, which will be the Israelites. This is who Enoch was actually speaking of. They were a place was made for them where they was not supposed to rise in the judgment, and they were supposed to stay there in darkness forever. The same thing Jude said. Let's keep going though. Enoch 102, 11 through 25. Fear ye not, ye souls of righteous, and be hopeful ye that have died in righteousness, and grieve not if your soul into Sheol has descended in grief, and that in your life your body fare not according to your goodness, but wait for the day of judgment, of the sinners, and for the day of cursing and chastisement. And yet when ye die, the sinners speak over you. As we die, so die the righteous. And what benefit do they reap for their deeds? Behold, even as we, so do they die in grief and darkness. And what have they more than we? From henceforth we are equal. And what they receive and what we will, they see forever. Behold, they too have died, and henceforth forever shall they see no light. I tell you, ye sinners, ye are content to eat and drink, and rob and sin, and strip men naked, and acquire wealth and see good days. Have ye seen the righteousness, how their end falls out? That no manner of violence is found in them until their death. Nevertheless, they have perished and became as though they had not been, and their spirits descended into hell in tribulation. Okay. Enoch 103, 10 and 11. Woe to you, ye sinners, when ye have died, if you die in the wealth of your sins. 108, 12 and 16. 108, 12 through 16. Now I will summon the spirits of the good who belong to the generation of light, and I will transform those who were born in darkness, who in the flesh were not recompensed with such honor as their faithfulness deserved. And I will bring forth in shining light those who have loved my holy name, and I will seat each on the throne of his honor. See, we see this being displayed in the book of Revelation. This was all about those Israelites in the first century that was coming under the Christian era, or the kingdom, or the new covenant. And they shall be glorified for times without numbers. For righteousness is the judgment of God. For to the faithful he will give faithfulness, and the habitation of upright paths. And they shall see those who were born in darkness led into darkness, while the righteous shall be resplendent. And the sinners shall cry aloud, and see them resplendent. And they indeed will go where days and seasons are prescribed for them. So we have the sinners being taken into everlasting darkness that was made to them. Alright, so now let's see here. It says, raging waves of the sea, foaming out of their shame. They were the wandering stars. And Enoch, you see about the wandering stars also. And the stars and the sons and the daughters and all that. These are the wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness and darkness forever. And Enoch also, you see, he just brought up something from Enoch. So now he's going to go more on Enoch. And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these things, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000 of his saints. So it said Enoch prophesied of these things. What things? those being reserved in blackness and darkness forever. Who was Jude talking about? The first century Israelites. So Enoch prophesied that the first century Israelites were going to be, there was going to be a place of darkness reserved for them forever. Those under the Mosaic covenant that would not let it go. That's what Enoch prophesied. Okay? Enoch wasn't talking about today's time, and for the people who don't like Enoch, you don't understand what his prophecy was about. You don't understand what the book of Enoch was about. It was all about parables and visions and etc. about the first century Israelites who would kill the Messiah and be destined for judgment during that first century. So this is what all of this is about. So in Enoch, also the seventh from Adam, prophesied these things, saying, behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000 of his saints. Well, let me get it. Enoch 1:15 through 17. Enoch 1:15 through 17. And behold, he cometh with 10,000 of his holy ones to execute judgment upon all, and to destroy all the ungodly, and to convict all flesh. So now, when we see all ungodly, all flesh, who is Enoch talking about? He's prophesying about those ungodly men in the first century, those Israelites. This prophecy is against Israelites. These are y'all might not like it, but this prophecy was those Torah only. I'm going to only follow Torah. I will kill the Messiah. I will persecute the church. That prophecy, that everything that Enoch saw was about those people. It was against those people, those first century Jews. Of all the works of their ungodliness, which they have ungodlily committed, and of all the things, of all the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. Now, this is Enoch 1. The words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous, who will be living in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed. So now, Enoch 1 says that this whole thing was supposed to be against those wicked and godless people. And it was going to be a blessing to the elect and the righteous living in the day of tribulation. Well, when was the day of tribulation? Let's find the day of tribulation. Let's go to the day of tribulation. Enoch was prophesying about the first century saints. So now, Matthew 24 and Matthew 24 and right there, 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor shall there ever will be. When was the great tribulation going to be? Matthew 24 and 2. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, that there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. So that great tribulation was during the first century destruction of the temple. Let's see if I can find, let's see. I don't think I downloaded a Septuagint. Let's see if the Geneva have it. I'm going to see if the Geneva have it real fast. Let's see if the Geneva have it. No, it says a time of trouble too. Let's see if I can find the Septuagint real fast. Let's see if I can find the Septuagint real fast. Here we go, right here. This is English Septuagint. Sorry, y'all. I thought I had the Septuagint already downloaded, but let's see here. All right, so now close this. Sorry, I gotta restart eastwards in order to see. Hold on, y'all. Give me 1 second. All right, now. I don't know what these two words is. There. Right here. Now, I got it now. Daniel 12:1 to show you that this is all talking about the same events. So this is the Septuagint. It predates the Masoretic text. It predates what you read. Hey, y'all, hurry up, please. It predates what y'all read in your King James Version Bible. This is from the Greek version of the old Hebraic scrolls that was around before the Masoretic text. So this is what it says in Daniel 12:1. And at that time, Michael the great prince shall stand up that stands over the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of tribulation. See, it's good to read when the Old Testament was translated from the Greek, because you know the New Testament was translated from the Greek. So it will be a better comparison. And plus, you'll see a lot of quotes from the from the New Testament using the Old Testament quotes, but they was quoting from this Septuagint. They wasn't quoting from the Masoretic text. So anyway, so this will be the time of tribulation that Christ was actually talking about right here. So now look, and there shall be a time of tribulation, such tribulation as has not been from that time that there was a nation on the earth until that time. And thy people shall be delivered, everyone that is written in the book. And then you have the resurrection right there, right? But this time of tribulation, when was it supposed to occur? When was this time of tribulation and Daniel was supposed to occur? Well, let's go back to the King James Version, and let's look at the KJV 16:11. That time of trouble was supposed to happen. Matthew 24. Once again, let's go back to where we pulled it at. For there shall be great tribulation. So this is the same tribulation that Daniel was talking about. And he said, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever will be. And this all involving the destruction. Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. So this is all first century destruction of the temple, 70 AD ideology. This is what that event was talking about. So when Enoch said, those righteous and elect living in the days of tribulation, Enoch was prophesying about this final destruction of the temple and ending that Mosaic covenant, bringing in that new everlasting covenant that never ends. If it never ends, it don't have an end date. The new covenant never ends, so the end times cannot be about the new covenant because the new covenant never ended. The Mosaic covenant ended, so all things in the Bible that you see talking about the end times, the latter times, the end of the days, is talking about the Mosaic covenant. And the Mosaic covenant ended right here in Matthew 24, dealing with 70 AD, the destruction of the temple. But so let's keep going now. Let's keep going. Let me go back to my KJV, my regular. So now, let's go to Deuteronomy. Let's talk more about this end time and stuff. Because this is what Enoch prophesied. That judgment was coming, and he was going to come with, let me see, 10,000 of his holy ones. But people want that 10,000 to be an exact number, not understanding that this is Hebrew literature. But anyway, Deuteronomy 33 and 2. And he said, the Lord came. Hey, y'all, close that door. Close the door. Close the door. And he said, the Lord came from Sinai and rose up from Seir unto them. He shined forth from Mount Paran, and he came with 10,000s of saints. From his right hand went a fiery law for them. So we see the parallel to the 10,000 saints right here in Deuteronomy 32. Right? So he came with the 10,000 of the saints for the law, to give the law, right? So now he's coming with 10,000 of the saints for judgment. Okay? This was all about that covenant. Second Thessalonians 1. And to you who are troubled, rest with us when the Lord Jesus shall be revealed from heaven with his mighty angels in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God and obey not the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, who shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his power. We see the same thing in Enoch, but who are they talking about? These will be those Jews that followed Torah, who was trying to persecute Christ in the church. This is these people in the first century was the recipient of this punishment. First Thessalonians 1 and 3. Sorry. First Thessalonians. Sorry, y'all. To the end he may establish your hearts unblameable in holiness before God, even our Father, at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ with all his saints. So we see a lot of comings with Christ with all his saints. And when was that supposed to happen? When was that supposed to occur? Matthew 16, 27 and 28. For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels. That's that 10,000 angels right there. The thousands of angels right there. He should come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you, he's talking to the disciples, see? And Jesus said unto his disciples, he's talking to the disciples. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. That coming in the kingdom, that second coming, that coming with the 10,000 of his saints, all of this was supposed to occur before the disciples died, before all of them died. This is a first century coming. Hold on, y'all, just got a question? Thank everybody for listening. But let's keep going on. So Christ prophesied himself that he was coming in the first century, before the same generation of his disciples. But now let's keep pulling. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory. Now we saw that he just told the disciples that it was going to be before all of them died, first century. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, we just read it, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. So we see all of that imagery, right? So now, this is what Jude was talking about. So now, Now look, the ungodly sinners have spoken against him. Now who were the ungodly sinners? Murmurer. These are murmurers, complainers, walking after their own lusts. And their mouth speaketh great swelling words, having man's persons in admiration because of advantage. Remember, they didn't want Christ to keep going on because they felt that he was going to take the thunder from them. So now, let's see here. For when they speak great swelling words of vanity, they allure through the lust of the flesh, through much wantonness, those that were clean escaped from them who lived in error. So this is more about the apostasy. All right, let's see what we have here. Wantonness, meaning licentiousness, vices, filthy, lasciviousness, wanton. Okay, so it's filthy. Okay, so now we got that. Much filthiness. Those that were clean escaped from them who live in error. While they promise them liberty, they themselves are the servants of corruption. For of whom a man is overcome, of the same is he brought into bondage. So what Christ say, y'all go everywhere and make these proselytes and come back and he's 2 times worse or way worse than he was before he even met you all. This is what those Jews in the first century was doing. This is all about the apostasy right here. They come in acting like that they are for Christ, we're doing all of these things for the kingdom and for the church, but they really were spreading lies and trying to take things for their own advantage and take people out of the kingdom of heaven. We have the same thing going on now. But this was a first century thing, fulfillment. For if after they have escaped the pollutions of the world through the knowledge of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, they were again entangled therein and overcome, the latter end is worse with them than the beginning. This is all about the apostasy. Right there. That's the apostasy that was supposed to come. We see that apostasy being displayed. For the time would come when they would not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers, having itching ears. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables. Look, I charge thee before God the Lord, who shall judge the quick and the dead at the appearing and his kingdom. When was that supposed to happen? First century. First century. Hold on, y'all give me 1 second. Alright, so now let's keep rocking and rolling. Let's keep this ball going. Who murmured in their tents, and hearkened not unto the voice of the Lord. Therefore he lifted up his hand against them to overthrow them in the wilderness. So who was doing the murmuring? These were the Israelites. Once again, this is all about the Israelites under the Mosaic covenant. And ye murmured in your tents, and said, because the Lord hated us, he had brought us forth out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites, to destroy us. So we see that murmuring is all about, could you close the door?
No.
That murmuring is all about, hey, could you close the door? And murmuring is all about those Israelites. But beloved, remember ye the words which were spoken before the apostles of our Lord Jesus Christ. So once again, this is a first century audience, first century Christian audience being spoken to. How that they told you there should be mockers in the last time who should walk after their ungodly lusts. Once again, when is that last time? The last of the Mosaic covenant. Not the new covenant that doesn't have an end, but the Mosaic covenant. Last of the Mosaic covenant. Alright, so now, knowing this first, that there should come in the last days scoffers walking after their own lust. Once again, in the last day, let's see if we can get that last right there. Eschatos, fathers, final, end of, last, latter end, lowest, uttermost. So, in those last days of the Mosaic covenant, scoffers was going to come up. Second Timothy 3:1-5. This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to the parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lover of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. So, who will have a form of godliness? This will be the Israelites, the first century Israelites, those under the Mosaic covenant. They had a form of godliness, but they was denying the power of the Father that the Son was displaying. This was all supposed to be signs that the time of the end was about. This is first century. This is first century. So now,
Y'all be quiet.
let's see here.
Be quiet, y'all.
Got a few more verses. Jude 19. These be they who separate themselves sensual, having not the Spirit. But the natural man receiving not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. So the natural man, the people that was doing the Mosaic covenant, believing all about Moses this, Moses that, we're the chosen people, blah, blah, blah. These people in the first century, they were looking at all of the natural things. What did the Jude call them? They was naturally brute beasts. See, they could not understand the things of the Spirit. They could not understand things dealing with faith and the law being written on your heart and being going through the baptism and all of that stuff to believe on in the kingdom of heaven not being something that they could observe, but it being inside of them, and etc. These Mosaic followers, these Mosaic covenant followers, could not understand that, so they could not receive the things in the spirit. They were separated from the church. But ye are not in the flesh, but in the spirit. If so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. Now, if any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his. So, the people that were understanding Christ and that went through the baptism and opened themselves up for the new covenant, these people were considered not fleshly people, but spirit people. These was considered the spiritual Israel. These were all spirit-based people that the Most High came down to tabernacle with in Revelation. These are the followers of Christ. And in order to be a follower of Christ, you had to have the Spirit. These are all first century things. And now us, in the 21st century, 20 centuries later, we can read these things and understand that through our baptism and etc., we get the same inheritance of them. Yeah, my video's buffering a lot. I'll try to speed it up then. Alright, so now Hebrews 10:25. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the matter of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching. So, the author of Hebrews was telling them that you're not supposed to forsake the assembly, while these people that did not have the Spirit, they were separating themselves from the assembly of Christ. For every one of the house of Israel, or of the stranger that sojourneth in Israel, which separated himself from me, and setteth up his idols in his heart, and putteth the stumbling block of his iniquity before his face, and cometh to a prophet to inquire of him concerning me, I the Lord will answer him by myself. And I will set my face against that man, and will make him a sign and a proverb. And I will cut him off from the midst of my people, and you should know that I am the Lord. And you should know that I am the Lord. So we saw this happening in the first century amongst Israel. They were separating themselves. They was creating their own stumbling blocks. They was going into idolatry, which was the pretty much the doctrine of Balaam, and all this stuff was happening. Though Proverbs 18:1, through desire of man, having separated himself, seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. A fool hath no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover itself. So we see that happening in the first century. Once again, they was forsaking the assembly of Christ to be stuck separated in the Mosaic covenant. Alright, let's finish up with Jude now. Pretty sure y'all got the whole backstory of Jude, y'all understand. So now, could y'all close the door? Jude 1:20. Be ye beloved, building up yourselves on your most holy faith, praying in the Holy Spirit. So they had to have faith. Keep yourself in the love of God, looking for the mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ unto eternal life. All this is first century stuff. And of some have compassion, making a difference. And others save with fear, pulling them out of the fire, hating even the garment spotted by the flesh. And the Lord said unto Satan, the Lord rebuked thee, O Satan. This is Zechariah 3, 2 through 5. And the Lord said unto Satan, the Lord rebuked thee, O Satan. Even the Lord that hath chosen Jerusalem rebuked thee. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. And he said and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with a change of raiment. He was putting on the white garment. That spotted garment, the filthy garment, was the iniquities, the sin. And I said, let them set a fair mitre upon his head. So they set a fair mitre upon his head and clothed him with garments. And the angel of the Lord stood by. Revelation 3:4. Thou hast a few names even in Sardis, which have not defiled their garments, and they shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. So look, and others saved with fear, pulling them out of the fire, hating even the garment spotted by the flesh. Hate their iniquity. Saved them from, was saving them from the fire. Now unto him that is able to keep you from falling, and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy. To the only wise God, our Savior, be glory and majesty and dominion and power, both now and ever. Amen. So we are concluded with Jude. Hopefully we was able to go through all of the information that Jude understood, all of the Hebrew culture, so you can understand what this Bible actually teaches and what the people of Israel understood and how they would have ventured into history and knew exactly what Jude was saying. Jude was talking to first century saints, warning first century saints about the things that were to come. So hopefully that all made sense. I'd like to say thank y'all for listening in. Shalom, shalom. You can join my YouTube channel, AOSD Chandler, Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler. It's AOSD Chandler. Thank you for listening. Hold on.